Join me as I take on the challenge of mastering your taxes like a flight attendant. I'm diving into all the tips and tricks to make tax season a breeze. As a flight attendant, taxes can be overwhelming, especially with the unique expenses and deductions that come with the job. But understanding your taxes is crucial for your financial well-being. It can literally mean the difference between owing money or getting a refund, and who doesn't love getting some extra cash back? When it comes to taxes, flight attendants face some unique challenges. For one, travel expenses can be a real headache. Trying to keep track of all those receipts and calculate the exact amount of kilometers driven or hours spent in the air can be a nightmare. And let's not forget about the complex deductions that come with being a flight attendant. From uniform costs to per-flight allowances, there are so many details to keep track of. Let's discuss all one by one. Let's start with car expenses. Unfortunately, you are not able to deduct the costs of your regular commute to and from work on your taxes. This applies even if you have a long commute, work non-traditional hours, such as weekends or early mornings, or have split shifts. So, while you may spend a lot of time and money getting to work, these expenses cannot be claimed as tax deductions. It's important to keep this in mind as you file your taxes. If you own a car and use it for work-related travel, you may be able to claim the expenses on your taxes. For instance, if you have multiple jobs in the same day, you can claim the cost of driving between them. This could include driving from your first job as a flight attendant to your second job as a trainer. You can also claim expenses if you drive to and from a different location for the same employer. For example, if you drive from a training venue to the airport, just be sure to keep track of your mileage and any other related costs for your tax records. Second comes travel expenses. If you have to stay away from home overnight for work, you can get reimbursed for your travel expenses. When we say overnight, we mean you have to take a mandatory break to rest and sleep for about 7 hours before you start working again. This usually involves staying at a hotel or other accommodation. Your travel expenses may cover meals, lodging, transportation costs, and any other incidental expenses you have while traveling for work. So keep track of your receipts and expenses and make sure to claim them back so you're not out of pocket. If your employer or someone else pays for your travel expenses, you can't deduct them on your taxes. This also applies to expenses for commuting between your home and your workplace. Just because you receive a travel allowance from your employer doesn't mean you automatically get a tax deduction. You still need to prove that you were away from home overnight, actually spent the money, and that the travel was necessary for earning your income from employment. Now let's discuss clothing and laundry expenses, including footwear. You can't deduct the cost of regular clothes you wear for work, even if your employer makes you wear them and you only wear them at work. Everyday clothes like plain black shoes are considered conventional clothing and are not eligible for a tax deduction. However, if your job requires you to wear a specific uniform with strict guidelines on things like shoe color, style, and type, you may be able to deduct those uniform items. It's important to follow the rules set by your employer to ensure you can claim any eligible expenses on your taxes. If you have to wear a uniform for work, you may be able to claim the cost of buying, renting, repairing, or cleaning it. A compulsory uniform is one that your workplace requires you to wear, and it must be distinctive to your organization. If the uniform is not mandatory, but is registered with ours industry, you may also be able to claim the expenses. However, you cannot deduct these costs if your employer reimburses you for them. Make sure to ask your employer if you're unsure about the uniform policy. Meal and snack expenses. You can't deduct the cost of food, beverages, or snacks you eat during your regular work hours, even if you get an allowance. Those are considered personal expenses. However, you can claim a deduction for food and drinks purchased while traveling for work and staying overnight. If you receive an overtime meal allowance as part of your job and it's included in your taxable income, you may be able to claim it as a deduction. It's important to know that when filing your expenses, you can't include certain personal costs. These include things like music subscriptions, childcare expenses, fines, grooming expenses like haircuts, cosmetics, and skincare products, even if your job requires you to look presentable. Also, things like flu shots and parking at your regular workplace aren't eligible for reimbursement. Just keep in mind that these personal costs are on you to cover. It's always good to stay informed about what you can and can't claim when it comes to expenses. In the end, mastering your taxes as a flight attendant requires some work, but it's worth it. By taking advantage of all the deductions available to you, you can save money on your taxes and even get a refund. And who doesn't love getting some extra cash back? So take the time to document your expenses, calculate your deductions, and lodge your tax return correctly. Your wallet will thank you. This video is for general purposes only. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment below with your own tax tips or questions. And if you're looking for more tax tips of more professions, be sure to check out my other videos.